Okay, hi. I'm Denver Holt from the Owl Institute in Charlotte, Montana, and I think this is my second chat this year. And we did a few last year, and um, basically the Owl Institute is a full-time, year-round field research oriented group. We study primarily owls and small mammals, or what they prey upon, and the habitats they live in. So I'm here to try to answer any more questions about the great horns and the long-eared owl cameras we have up this year. And then, any general questions that people might have about owls that, I'm able to answer.
Any insights that we gained from this year's view of the nest?
Okay, this year's view of the nest, I suppose it depends which ones, both the long-eared and the great horns. Yeah, we always learn. Having the three great horned owl chicks, I think, was pretty cool. That's, last year we had two, and I believe the year before we had two. So having three crowded into a small nest, it's just kind of neat just to see their behaviors, how the little chicks interact with the big chicks. Same with the long.
Thoughts on the female declining some prey from the male early on in the chick's growth?
Oh, I see. Okay, the question. I wasn't sure for a moment. Female not accepting prey. I think that's what the question is. No, I've seen that in other owls before, particularly in our snowy owl research, where we spend a lot of time in the blinds, where the male will bring in food and the female is not interested. The male may take it away and eat it himself or cache it. So I don't know the reasons behind that. Maybe she's just not hungry and not ready.
By consuming the owlet's pellets, is the female recycling unused calories or simply cleaning the nest in order to deter predators, or a combination of both?
Okay, so by re-ingesting some of the pellets, and what's the significance of that? I really don't know. Is it cleaning the nest? Well, I suppose she could just dump it over the edge if she wanted to, but maybe that attracts predators. Maybe she is cleaning the nest again to reduce the accumulation of debris in the nest. Is she re-ingesting for more nutrient recycling? I don't know the answer to any of that, and sometimes you even see the chicks eat pellets. Sometimes I think it's just a mistake by the chicks. But the answer, a definitive answer, I can't give you on that one. For any of the species where I've seen it happen, I've seen it happen in several species.
General info about the long-eared owls: as the female abandoning the family at 6.5 to 8 weeks, the male continuing to feed until 10 weeks. In your research, have you found a percentage of females who remain with their fledglings longer than 6.5 to 8 weeks?
Okay, let me see if I can remember all that. over in Europe, and I'm not sure. But on average, I would say over the 29 years now that we've been studying the long-eared owls in Montana, it's going to be right around 5 is going to be the average.
How did the banding go? What does mom do with the chicks?
Okay, how does the banding go, and what does mom do when we're with the chicks? The banding went well. It generally goes smooth. You know, sometimes the chicks will bail out of the nest as we climb the nest, and we have to put them back in the nest or close by. The females, it depends. It varies among females. A lot of times they'll just go off to the side. Sometimes they'll scream and give you wing fanning displays. Sometimes the males will come in, and it seems to be both an individual and a paired behavior. It varies quite a bit among individuals, but for the most part, it's an annoyance, we would say, to them as we band the chicks, and then once we leave, everybody gets right back to business.
Okay, about when you banded the chicks, were they weighed and measured, and if so, can you tell us their sizes?
Oh, no, we don't. We didn't do that this time. We just banded them. We've done some growth rates and plumage development in the past, and so we feel we've got pretty good data on that, and there's no need to do it again. You know, when you're doing stuff like this, you know, you're always thinking of the birds. I mean, part of what we do, you could say, is wildlife harassment, even though we have permits and expertise to do it. So, you know, depending on what our question is and where we're going, we try to minimize the amount of time that we mess with the birds. And so in this case here, we've done the growth rates, the plumage development. So or she may fake injury like she has a broken wing to try to lead us away from the nest. Sometimes the male will come in and hoot, sometimes he'll come in and scream, sometimes he'll do the same thing. And then at other times the female will just take off and she'll go roost and not paying any attention. The male may do something. Sometimes the male will just take off and not pay any attention. The female will do something. So it does vary quite a bit um, based on just individual behaviors. Then, however, after we leave, the females come back to the nest and the males get back to probably just go to the roost and get ready for the evening hunt.
Were both parents banded when they were chicks, and where were these parents originally banded?
Okay, I'm just trying to recall these two. They're both banded. The female was banded 2 years ago. Off a nest about 10 feet where she's nesting now. It's pretty interesting. It's a really neat thing that's happened here. Very few females ever return to the same area to breed, and 200 and whatever, close to 50 nests we found now, and all these males and females we banded. It's happened less than 5 times where females have come back and bred in the same area. The male, I believe, was banded in a winter roost and stayed and paired up with its female. It is a different male than she bred with 2 years ago, however. And that seems to be what we see, or is, based on mark recaptures. They're seasonally monogamous. We believe there's some maybe social tries of polygamy once in a while, but over their lifetime, they're polygynous. We've never had a male or female mate with the same individual in ensuing years. But also, there's a very, very high turnover, with females probably being the dispersing sex and males being the sex that show some fidelity to a site, although sample size are small for both of those.
Do you band unbanded adults when and if you find them?
Do we band unbanded adults when and if we find them? Yes, we band every owl or long-eared owl in this study here that we can. Normally what we do is we band these birds in the wintertime. The study is conducted throughout the year, and we locate winter roost sites. They're one of the few species that roost communally in the wintertime, so we define a communal roost as 2 or more. Generally, there's 5, 8, 10 birds. We've had groups of up to 80 birds in the roost. The roost, again, is smaller as the years go on for reasons unknown. But anyway, We capture and band as many as possible. We predict their sex during the wintertime or non-breeding season. Then we continue to do research in our study area. And when we find birds, hopefully some of these birds are already banded, then we can see exactly, do they stay around? Is it the same individual? Are our sex predictions correct or not? Are they mating with the same individuals? As I already answered that. Any fidelity to site and things of that sort. So as many birds as we can get marked, we do. I think we're probably pushing, we must be getting close to about 1,800 long-eared owls marked now in the 29 years of study here.
I'm very happy all 6 chicks have survived and look happy and healthy. Is it unusual for this large a number to make it to adulthood? And is it due to large amount of prey in the area?
Okay, well, I'm glad you're happy that the chicks are making it. We are too. It's always sad when we have mortalities. 6 is a good number. As I said, the average number probably over the years is going to be right around 5 or so, 5 eggs, 5 chicks. We don't see that much mortality. If the chicks hatch, they tend to, at least most of them anyway, tend to make it to the dispersing stage, which means they branch or leave the nest at about 3 weeks of age. Then after that, determining fledging success is very difficult. The birds hide in the trees, so we've gone in. We also do trapping after that to try to figure out who made it and who didn't. And not that we can always tell you the ones that we never found, whether they're alive or not. We just maybe have not found them. 6 chicks in the nest, yeah, I would say is indicative of a pretty good vole year. Yeah, so that's always a good sign. Overall, our population has been declining over the 29 years in both our area where there's lots of development, our area where it's conservation land. Reasons for that, again, are unknown or speculation. We don't know, but certainly they're declining. And I would say right now, the long-eared owl population estimate based on breeding bird surveys and Christmas counts and all that is the lowest for any owl species that regularly nests in the United States and Canada. So it eliminates the fringe species like the Whiskers screech owl and the Fluted screeching owl.
We've been asked to go back and repeat some of our first questions.
Okay.
So we'll start at the beginning. Any new insights that we've gleaned from this year's fabulous view of the nest?
New insights into this year's fabulous view of the nest. Oh gosh. Well, I got to see a head mouse hanging out there. No, I don't know about totally new insights. We have a person from England who was interested last year in doing her dissertation on time budgets, and that I think would be kind of neat. Just to go in there and view it every now and then. I can't tell you that I learned, anything startling other than asking more questions. How often does the male feed the female? How often does she break? How long are the chicks left exposed? Maybe some parental care and things like that. We probably have developed new questions, and not necessarily have we, quantified anything on that.
Any thoughts on the female declining some of the prey that the male has brought earlier in the chick's growth?
Was that with the great horned, or was that with the long-eared?
It doesn't say. I'm guessing long-eared.
Either way. And again, any thoughts on declining prey? I don't know. As I said before, I've seen it in snowy owls quite a bit, and I just don't know the answer. The male comes in, and who knows? Maybe he's very happy. Here I am. I got some food for you, and the female doesn't pay much attention to it. And maybe she's full. Maybe she doesn't feel like feeding. Maybe the chicks are full. Again, I don't know the answer. One of the things that we've noticed, and again with the snowies, because we're able to work with them more in hand, is that when the chicks are hungry, they're always pecking. They're pecking at your fingers when you work. They're kind of, moving around the nest and, kind of annoying the female. And so maybe the chicks just weren't hungry if we're not seeing that on the camera. But I don't know the answer, honestly. And I wish I did, but I don't.
By consuming the pellets of the chicks, is the female recycling unused calories or simply cleaning the nest in order to deter predators, or a combination of both, or something?
Okay, then that's the other question again. In eating the pellets, is she cleaning the nest to help, maybe reduce smell, maybe reduce parasite loads, maybe to, get more out of the pellet as far as nutrients go, like rabbits. Some rabbits will re-ingest their fecal waste to get more nutrients out of it. again, it would just be guessing on my part, and I really don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure if anybody knows definitively the answer. I mean, there's lots of good questions and speculation about it. Maybe you don't want an accumulation of pellets below the nest and a raccoon can smell it. Maybe if there's an accumulation of prey and pellets in the nest, it attracts, parasites or flies, worms, etc. Those are all good questions. Whether or not the female gets more nutrients by recycling a pellet and digesting it even further, digesting it even further, digesting it even further. I'm not sure what laboratory stuff shows on that. Maybe there is some information, but I don't know it.
General information has females abandoning the family about 6.5 to 8 weeks. Male continuing to feed till 10 weeks. In our research, have we found a percentage of the females who remain with their fledglings longer?
Oh, and answering that question again. Gosh, I'm just trying to recall all the years now. It seems to me that there's been a few times when females have remained a little longer than what we had expected, but generally speaking, whenever that time comes, the females, when they do disappear, we don't see them again. And then when the males disappear, again, we don't see them again unless it's the following year. We might recapture them again. But again, I don't have that answer. It might be good, if you have some telemetry studies, they might add some more insight into that, where they go and all that. But it's really hard to say, because they're basically nocturnal. We do the trapping and banding and try to get as much information as possible. We also do the behavioral observations in the daytime, but it's really hard just to get a handle on exact dates and all
that. Maximum clutch size for long-eared owls.
Same questions over and over?
They just want us to repeat 1 through 6 to bear.
Okay, all right. Maximum clutch size. With our long ears, in our studies here, 8 has been the highest clutch we've had. 5, I would say, is going to be about the average over the 29 years or so. And again, 250 nests. Our snowy owl, someone said 14. I'm pretty sure that I've read that in the literature as well. In my study, or our study area in Barrow, Alaska, snowy owls, 10 has been the highest. So in snowies, it's been 3 to 10 in our study. In our long snowies is probably going to be right in that 5 or 6 range over the years. Long-ears are going to be in that 5 range. Horned owls that we know of, I've never seen 4. I've heard of 4 and rarely 5. Most of the time it's 2, and 3 is not unusual. Good bull year.
Last repeat here. How did the banding go today? What does the female do when we're banding the chicks?
Okay, so how did the banding go today? The banding went well. Matt and Steve and Jess are out doing the banding this morning. And normally what happens is the female's roosting either on the nest or nearby, depending on the size of the chicks. And we try to make them aware that we're coming. We don't want to startle anybody. Just so maybe she doesn't knock a chick out of the nest or something like that. Same with eggs, if there's eggs. And so what they normally do, and again, it depends on the individuals and depends on the pair, but what they normally do is the female may just fly away and go sit in the brush, and we don't see her. The male may come in and hoot and scream, feign injury, wing injuries. The female may do that. The male may not pay any attention. The female may act like she's injured. She may scream. She may hoot, trying to lure us away from the nest. Sometimes it's both of them. They'll come in and they'll circle around. Particularly when you have big chicks, the birds tend to be a little higher, and they'll roost in the trees and they'll scream at you. So again, it's an individual thing. It has some stereotypic behaviors when it occurs, but it tends also to be an individual in a pair type of behavior. When we leave, however, the birds get back to whatever they were doing. The female will come back. She may brood. She may sit near the young. The male will go back to a roost. And the reason we can tell you that is we do try to check up on them shortly thereafter. We might walk away and go do another nest and come back. On the way back, we'll say, let's go check this nest. Let's go check that. Make sure everything is okay.
What is the survival rate for the young after fledging? And what is their normal life expectancy? Fledging. And what is their normal life expectancy?
Okay, survival rate after fledging, so difficult to tell where the individuals go. And after they leave the nest, first they leave the nest about 3 weeks. First they leave the nest about 3 weeks of age before they can fly. Let's say they begin flying around, 5 to 6. We're trying to get an idea how many fledge per nest or who's fledged and who hasn't. Not that we always know who hasn't if we haven't found them. So let's just say, 5 chicks make it and they fledge, and we're able to determine that successfully. And what happened, their survival after that, once they're on the wing and the coordinated flyers, they stay around for a few weeks after, as the male will continue to feed, as we talked about earlier. And then it seems like they're gone. They're gone. They're gone most of the time. They're gone most of the time. We don't see them again that season. Most of the time, we don't see most of the rest of their life. So to determine their success after they fled, one of those 5 birds came back and bred in the area the following year. Okay, that just tells us about that individual. We don't really know what happened to the other 4. Back, we've learned over the years, it tends to be the males being the phylopatric sex, meaning come to breed in the area where it was born. 3 males to show site fidelity, and again, that just means that maybe over time they tend to stay in the same general area, and the females tend to disperse and leave the area. We can tell you that because we so rarely see young females showing phylopatric return to the area, and then adult females showing some. This female was really, really different because whatever it was 10, 15 feet away from this nest is where she bred 2 years ago with a different mate. I can't remember how many young she raised then. She probably raised 5 then. But what we've seen over the years with them again, that it's, seasonal monogamy, maybe a few tribes that social polygyny anyway, but lifetime polygyny with different mates, if we have that data. But what the measure of reproductive success, really, even though we can only take it to a certain point of fledge, and then we don't know what happens after that, to get back to your question, but really, you have to know if the young produced by this male and this female, whatever pairs you're dealing with, if they live and reproduce. We always say, reproductive success was 5 because 5 fledged. Well, that's really maybe fledging success, but reproductive success is measured by the next generation. And if they reproduce, if all 5 of those chicks die, then it's for naught. And so it's just really difficult to get at. We cheat the system a little bit when we say that's the reproductive success, but really it's the measure of your offspring.
Notice one of the chicks shifting its head around as it was staring straight ahead. Is the vision of the little ones as good as the adults?
Oh, the vision of the little ones is good as the adults. You start, kind of gauging, moving back and forth and all that. Maybe just like looking at the camera. I have no idea. I process before they have great vision, but then that's just a guess. We would probably have to get into vet or an ophthalmologist or someone to tell us the developmental process of vision in invertebrates in general. I can't see myself. Let me just make sure here. Okay.
Let's see. Are the long-eared owl chicks prone to sibling aggression? We sure haven't seen.
Yeah, all right. So are the long-eared owl chicks prone to sibling aggression? Yeah. It's kind of in the literature, this whole sibling aggression, and sure, there's the whole Cain and Abel thing in eagles, and then the aggression inherent in egrets of some species, and it's been passed on in snowy owls and shorter owls. In the years and years of doing this, we just don't see. You see maybe some aggression, some sibling stuff going on, but it doesn't seem to be vicious. It doesn't seem to be violent. And so I'm in agreement with you that maybe it's overblown a little. We just don't tend to see it. Now, depending on if you're starving or not, things might change a little bit. We've seen where maybe larger snowy owl chicks could outcompete smaller ones, but we're not seeing anybody really pounding on another one and killing it and consuming it or pushing it out of the nest or things like that.
Do the owls stay together for life? Or how many clutches do they have per season?
The owls stay together for life. I'm presuming you're talking about the adults. Well, this is a good question here because we can contrast the species and their lifestyles. And then ask me the second part again here, Matt. With the great horned owls, there's some indication that as long as the pair's alive, and they will remain unpaired because they tend to be more of a resident species, and so males and females will stay together unless something happens, and then maybe they'll get a new mate for prolonged periods of time. It may not be for life, but it could be, and that's probably because they tend to be a resident species for the most part, except perhaps the northern part of their range. Now, something like the long owl, which is highly migratory, maybe you might call it nomadic or eruptive, what we can mate again. But the data is scant on that. We probably have the best data in the world on it, but still you're talking maybe less than 25, 30 pairs or so, or maybe a little more than that, where we have the same individual male might return, or rarely a female, but not once has a male and a female ever mated with the same individual in ensuing years. And even in one case, I remember, the male and the female mated 1 year and raised several chicks. The following year, he was back near the site. She was 2 miles away, mated with another one. He was mated with another one, and their 11-month-old son was mated with somebody else. Then we have another female resident for 4 years that we knew of, and in those 4 years, she had a different mate in each year. So again, different strategies for different species, and a lot of them being highly migratory, highly mobile versus being resident.
How many clutches per year?
Well, how many clutches per year? We've only ever seen one in the great horns and the long ears. It seems that I remember there might be a report of pretty intensive field studies going on for 29 years in these guys, and about two.
Yesterday, someone asked about the chick's eye color. At what age does the pale yellow shift to the darker shade of the adult, or do the eyes continue to darken with age?
Yeah, that's the chicks. You definitely can see that there is a development in the eye color from whatever it is, pale gray, yellow, on up until the. It seems like we've noticed over the years with what we call adult birds is that the very, very small percentage of them have what we call a lemon eye. We don't really try to break it down too much, but it's yellow or it's lemon. And there's a very, very small percentage of the birds that have a lemon eye or lemon colored eye. Years ago, I tried to break it down into age and sex, but the sample size is really small. I think we're starting to get a fair enough sample, and we will be able to start to look at the age and sex of these individuals and see if there's something to it. But definitely, as a youngster, it's a developmental process. By the time they fledge, they're what you would say is probably yellow. And then as adults that we capture, again, a very, very small percentage have a distinctly lemon-colored eye versus that yellow eye. And sometimes there's even orange specks in it. It depends how far you want to break it down and how far you can break it down.
So I regularly watch the Osprey Cam on Explore.org, and I have seen a great horned owl visitor in the nest. Are the great horned owls capable of taking on adult osprey? And if they are, for what reason would they try?
Okay, you know what? Courtney, if you're listening, I was supposed to answer that question a while back, and I never got to it. Sorry. I don't know why they visit the nest, and I don't know. An osprey is pretty big, and big feet, very formidable bird of prey. I don't know. If I was a great horned owl again, speculation, it would be dangerous to mess with an osprey. Maybe it would be dangerous for an osprey to mess with a horned owl. So again, I have no idea why the great horned owl is in the nest. I don't think, unless you've seen it, I don't think there would be much interaction. Did I miss something on that question?
Yeah, and if they did, what reasons would they try to take on an osprey?
I can't tell you. Especially, great horned owls nest earlier, so if they wanted the nest, they should have got it earlier. Maybe they're trying to steal food, grab a fish and go. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I don't even think they would pick because the females would be on small chicks, I'm sure.
How many of the chicks are likely to stay in the area somewhere near the nest?
Of which species? Okay, how many chicks are likely to stay in the area? They stick around with their parents, we're in May now. They will probably hang in there continually making food because they have to develop their hunting skills, and so the folks as I can. We very often hear them well into October, where they're still out there screaming, hoping to get a meal from the adults. Then after that point in time, it's hard to say if they just leave or the adults drive them off. We don't know the answers to that, but they'll probably just move out into different areas. And some people call them floaters, where they maybe are hanging between territories, on the edge of other resident territories, waiting for an opportunity for a territory breeding opportunity. This probably takes a little while to mature and gain a territory if you're a long-lived species like a great horned. With the long-eared, it seems like a really quick process with them. Like I say, the females leave shortly, a few weeks after the chicks fledge, and males leave a few weeks after that. And then it seems like you're on your own. Again, this is all, you have to interpret some of this stuff. And it appears that they're on their own, and then they just up and disappear shortly after that. Now, we generally don't see them until the following year, if we're going to see them at all. So, really hard to know what goes on. With the advent of satellite telemetry, there's a potential to learn a few things, but maybe you don't want to be putting telemetry gear on young birds in their first year of life, because you might, it's probably a struggle as is, so you gotta be careful about that. So again, lots of questions. We know a lot about these species, but we don't at the same time. And again, these nocturnal habits of these owls make it more difficult to gather, good information on them.
Have you noticed whether the explosion of live nature cams has created greater public awareness and respect for wildlife?
The explosion of nature cams creating greater awareness and respect for wildlife. I think so. I think one of the neat things, like this whole thing here of us working with Explore, it's given us a format, not only to learn more about the birds, but it's given us a format to talk more about what researchers do and what's the value of doing research. And then, how do we conserve, protect, manage, kind of depending on a host of issues and questions there. So the cameras are allowing me right now to talk to you. I think they're a really good thing. I think, we probably have to, at some point, be careful, at some point, when it's too much, or how, intrusive should it be. And then again, that's probably, the experts have to maybe make those decisions and work with the birds. We're talking next year putting cams, and we have boxes up for like boreal owls and solid owls and pygmy owls, and we've been exploring that and what the best way to do that, so we can learn a little bit more and share that with you as well. So I think the cameras have great impact potential from conservation education standpoint, and also to enhance researchers like ourselves who really can't see what's going on at night, but with infrared and our cameras, we can learn quite a bit more about the nocturnal behavior of some of these species.
I would be interested to hear about any of your experiences with great gray owls and how they are different or similar to the other species you've worked with or observed.
Yeah, great grays. I mean, we've been chasing great grays for, I've been doing this a long time now. Um, our experience with great grays, for such a big animal, they can be difficult to find. We've been, I would say, more hobbyish in our research on great gray owls. And what do I mean by that is, it tends to be kind of a seasonal thing where we don't get out every single day, and difficult. Like this year, we had a nest going for some reason in one of our areas. It failed. We found the feathers on the top of the stump, and the eggshells busted stump, and the eggshells busted below. Were tipped by cars that are feeding adults on the nest. Things like that have happened over the years. So we have a fair amount of experience with great grays, but I can't say that we keep trying to get that study up to par. And what I say is it takes about 3 years or 3 seasons to begin to get on the edge of really knowing how to conduct a study. And our great gray one has, for many years into it, I still don't think that we know how to work on great grays yet.
How will the outbreak of the bird flu affect these owls, if at all?
Yeah.
If at all.
Yeah, how will the bird flu affect the owls? I don't know. I think they just recorded bird flu here in Montana. Yeah, I don't know the answer, and I don't know how the owls, among other species, will be able to deal with it. So I got to defer to the experts on that one, because I don't know. I hate to tell you I don't know all the time, but there's a lot of things that we don't know.
Will there be snowy owl nests to observe this year?
Will there be snowy owl nests to observe this year? I sure hope so. I hope we can get a camera on a snowy owl nest this year. You can't predict these lemming population outbreaks. I think in 1993 I predicted one, and I was lucky, but I was young too. And now I'm a lot smarter, and I know that if you predict it, you're going to be wrong most of the time. You might get one right once in a while. So we're hoping. We do our lemming sample, our lemming trap lines, along with the snowy owl research. That's now 23 years going into 24 years. I don't believe in lemon cycles anymore. I don't believe in lemon cycles anymore, and I question animal cycles in general now. I think it's kind of to fluctuations through space and time, highs and lows. The periodicity isn't set at 3 or 4 years. It could be 2, it could be 6. We just chose a bad word, and we shouldn't have chose cycles, but we chose a bad word. Nonetheless, I sure am hoping. Last year we had what turned out to be the start of a good year, and then it just fell apart, and many of the chicks died last year. So illness. I hope it rebounds, and we have another, good start to it, and that it stays up. You always hope we really know what's going on till late May to mid June with the snowies, and we start our nest surveys. But hopefully we'll be able to get a camera on a nest this year and share some of information on snowy owls and Arctic, the ecology of the Arctic, and what's going on up there. So yeah, stay tuned for that one.
The long-eared adults and the great horned adults look somewhat similar. Are these two types of owls very different from each other? And how does raising their chicks compare?
Okay, all right, so let's see if I can do all these parts. The long-eared and the great horned look very similar. Yeah, they sure do. And maybe it's just convergent evolution. They both are kind of have the natural colors, if you will. The melanins and the browns, grays and tawnies, and colors like that. They both have tufts. They both have yellow eyes. They both have a black bill. The great horn has a big white patch in its throat that it uses when it bugles, and there may be some social signaling going on there, whether it's to females or it's to males. I don't know the answer to that. So they look a lot, but again, it might be for various reasons. The tufts maybe just have evolved just as camouflage. The color of the eyes, which is interesting. Three basic eye colors in the world wide. Great horns and long ears both have yellow eyes. I can't answer that, but they do answer that, Matt.
Do they have similar strategies for raising their chicks?
They have similar strategies for raising their chicks. Similar in the sense that it's all food dependent. With the long-eared owls, it's mostly vole or small mammal dependent, depending where you are geographically. So if the Thai populations of voles or other small mammals, the long-eared owl populations can be higher, and their cluck sizes can be higher. Horned owl, even though it eats primarily small mammals, at least in our studied area, it can diversify its diet, but it doesn't fluctuate as much. Generally, they have 2 to 3 young. So similar in some ways, but in other ways, the long-eared owl, highly migratory, nomadic, perhaps eruptive. The great horned owl tends to be resident. So they're not closely related as far as we know, based on.
We know you banded the long-eared owls. Do you also band the great horned owl chicks?
Do we also ban the great horned owl chicks? No, we don't. And the reason that we don't, an outline study on the great horns. I think that's something, when I'm 90 that I'll embark on when I can't face the long ears and snowies around anymore. No, we don't want to just ban for the sake of banding, and there's a lot of value to it. There's a ton of value to banding, but it's something that we established years ago. It's not to just go out and just ban things for the sake of catching and banding. And there's value to that, but we wanted to make sure that we had a specific study in mind with specific questions and trying to get at something. So with the horned owls, we haven't done that other than we just, we monitor nests and we do education programs and with the camera. The long ears, we had a specific study in mind. We had a specific question 29 years ago, which was, are winter communal roosts closely related? Are they family groups or related individuals and all that stuff? So, and plus, we've got 8 major studies going. If we took on another one, it'd kill us. We've got, and so
How does the long-eared owl eyesight compare to other birds?
How's the long-eared owl eyesight compared to other birds? No clue whatsoever. We know that, they're primarily nocturnal, so they probably have a higher, rod ratio to enhance the brighter image on their retina, and lack of color vision. Not to say they can't see maybe some colors, but for the most part, practical color vision. How they compare, if you look at some of these other diurnal species of birds, they have a, acute color vision, a keen vision for long distance. How it compares, because I don't know if anybody's really done any studies on long-eared, but I believe they've done studies on long-eared, but I believe they've done studies on other birds that where color is important.
Is there a pattern that the oldest owlet or chick may be a female?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not so sure of that. We can look. I think there was a woman in Russia, Irina Menushina, studying snowy owls, and I believe she suggested that in high lemon years there were more females in the clutch than males. But, we have the data on snowy owls. The long-eared owls it's just too tough, and the horned owls is too tough. But because the snowy owls, even as youngsters before they can fly, show distinct sexual color dimorphism, you can distinguish between males or females. We have the data. It'd be kind of interesting to look back at and see what we have.
What is their primary source of food, and is it plentiful?
Which species is it? The question was, what is their primary source of food, and is it plentiful? Let's just say the long-eared and the horned owl, because we're talking about them right now. Probably voles. When voles are plentiful, which this year they seem to be somewhat plentiful. Both species are eating a lot of voles. They seem to be abundant and easy to capture. Now, the long is really tied into voles. And their populations and their clutch sizes and all that are directly related to the high density of voles. The horned owls, on the other hand, they can diversify. So they can kill, they can kill ducks, they can kill coots, they can kill pheasants, they can kill rabbits, they can kill muskrats. Gulls, you name it, they're capable of killing a wide range of medium-sized to large birds, which tend to be somewhat abundant. If the vole population is down, the great horns can switch. Long ears, if the vole population is down, sometimes they might leave the area, they might not breed, or they'll just have fewer chicks in the nest.
Are the long-eared owls endangered in any way?
The long-eared owl is endangered anyway. No, they don't have any federal status, as far as I know. We did something several years back, and they did have a lot of state statuses as unknown, species of concern, basically species of concern, unknown status. Not sure about threatened or anything like that, but basically that species of concern. But it is interesting that we're starting to look at this, and the long-eared owl population in the United States and Canada, based on Christmas bird counts, breeding bird surveys, etc., is estimated at about 15,000. They figure about 9,000 in Canada and 6,000 in the U.S. And if this is true, and again, it's really hard to always know, how reliable some of these data are. We're all working from the same data set. But if this is true, then the long-eared owl population in the United States is lower than other species that have federal concerns like spotted owls and plain-legged owls, and maybe even burrowing owls in some areas. So I think the long-eared owl needs to be looked at every stage level where it occurs. Because it's so nocturnal, it's really difficult to get a handle on it. But right now, I have concerns on the long-eared owls. Our population here in western Montana, where we do our studies, and that's only here, but they're definitely on the long-term decline, and for reasons I don't know. There's some indication one of the migration stations, I think in Minnesota, where they appear to be on the decline there at the migration station. They have some confounding factors involved there, but the gut feeling from one of the guys over there doing the banding over the last 40 years or so is that it is in decline. So I think we need to do that. I think all the states need to do that. But you have to have good surveys. You have to have replicate surveys. You can't just go out there one time and do some hoop and toots and say, oh, we found them or we didn't find them. We need to have a really well organized study design and consider the biology of the species when we're doing this, and not just let's go out when the snow's melted and it's really nice and warm.
If a chick falls or is crowded out of the nest, will the parents retrieve it?
And if a chick falls or is crowded out of the nest, will parents retrieve it? Um, Not that I've seen. And normally what I've seen is if a chick falls out of the nest, and if it's big enough, hopefully, then it will crawl its way, up into some vegetation. It might find a leaning stick or a leaning tree and, grab with its feet and pull with its bill and get itself up to some elevated perch. And there it can continually be fed. But I've never seen a parent actually, well, I've never seen a chick, just randomly fall out of the nest, I guess, either. I've never seen a parent or heard of a parent go and pick up and bring it back in the nest. But I have heard of them once they're on the ground, which is very common with great horned owls. Last year, you guys, called me about every hour to tell me that the owl fell out of the nest and I had to go get him. But that's a normal behavior. And what parents will do is they'll just continue to feed the chick, whether it's on the ground or crawls up and goes to a bird or something like that.
Okay, let's wrap it up. Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Yeah, no, I mean, this, as I said last time, this is really fun for us. We're learning a lot from a biological standpoint, but to be able to share this is really neat. I've been in the business now, got 30 plus years, and have promoted, wildlife conservation, management, and research and all that, even though our specialty is owls. And the format that the cameras and Explore provide, it just gives us the opportunity to share this stuff and tell how cool some of these species are. And again, with us, it's owls, and we believe that owls are a great ambassador for conservation. But for other species, it could be polar bears, it could be osprey, it could be eagles and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my, So it's been really, really good, and we hope to continue it. And hopefully, we'll have a camera on the snowy owl nest and be able to answer more questions in the future. Thank you very much, you guys.